If you live in Key West, you're very familiar with my next guest this morning. He was your former city commissioner, and now he's in the running to replace Harry Sawyer as the supervisor of elections. Barry, thank you for being with me this
Thank you for
morning.
having me, Jenna.
All
Yes.
right, Barry, before we get into your campaign, could you give our viewers a little bit of your background?
Certainly. Like a lot of folks, I came here on vacation, and it's been almost 30 years now. The first 12 years that I was here in Key West, I worked for the bank. I lived in Marathon, I lived in Key Largo, and was a county president for, when I left, for First Union Bank. In 94, 95, I bought my business, Shades of Key West, which I operated for about 18 years. I just recently sold that business last year, and it's given me time to run full-time for this campaign. I spent 4 years as your city commissioner in Key West, was elected to there. It was a very, very good race with a good friend of mine, gentleman Richard Klitnick, and we both ran for that seat. And that was probably the biggest honor I had in the city, is serving 4 years as the commissioner of Key West, because you really see a lot, you hear a lot, you're involved, and so that was probably the big highlight of my career here as well. So.
And now you're running for supervisor of
Yes.
elections. And why are you doing this, Barry?
Actually, a couple years ago, I ran into Harry Sawyer one day. As a matter of fact, it was at the Blue Angels when they were here, and we were out at the base. And I was talking to him about the elections and how his career was going, and some legislative issues that were important at the time. And you know, he has a lot of knowledge about the elections process and has done a great job. And somewhere along the conversation, it got into the fact that he was considering retiring in 2012 and not running for re-election. And he made a comment to me that I should consider running for his seat because he thought I'd be a good fit. I hadn't really thought about it prior to that. So we had lunch, we had a few meetings, and after discussing about what the job entails, I thought it would be a great fit. So about the last year of my term on the city, after several meetings with some friends and advisors, and of course my family, my wife, to get permission to run for a county-wide campaign. We decided to make that move, and then I announced that I would not run for re-election for the city and seek this job for the supervisor of elections.
Okay. And what does this job entail, Barry?
Well, it's the obvious one is you run the elections and you're responsible for the elections. But in the meantime, there's a lot of candidates you have to deal with. The voter registration, every single day people are signing up to register to vote. There's an office in Key West, Marathon, and Key Largo. You've got lots and lots of poll workers that work at polls. You've got a lot of legislative issues, trips to Tallahassee, keeping up on all the changes, because there are a lot of changes that are happening from the legislative standpoint that have been affecting the supervisor's elections office. So that has got to be a big challenge, and even discussing with Harry as his time unwinds, it's a challenge for him because of the changes that are coming in the legislative issue. And it appears to me that the legislation is trying to control the elections process instead of leaving it as an independent body. And I think that's a concern that Harry has, and a concern a lot of electors, a lot of supervisors of elections have, that the legislation would want to take too much control over this process. And it should be totally autonomous and independent from that political process.
So that's one of the concerns, and I'm sure there's other concerns you'd like to address if you were elected to this position.
Yeah, you know, the strange thing, I guess, was this is a partisan race, so there's a Republican and Democrat in this race. But the supervisor elections should be nonpartisan when you get in there. You should not favor Democrats, Republicans, independents. You need to be fair and impartial to all. And I think the same thing goes with the legislative issues. Currently, the legislation and the governor is Republican. And you know, you need to stay independent of that as well. And I think that's very important, that you don't get caught up in the party politics, because you have to stay impartial. And it's probably a difficult task. And I admire and I respect what Harry has done recently by going against the grain in the Republican Party with the lawsuit to keep open registrations early for voting. And that's definitely going to be a priority of mine, is to maintain that impartiality regardless of what party is in control.
Okay. And we only have about a minute left, Barry, but why do you feel that you are the right fit for this position?
Well, I'm going to bring my government, business, and banking background. The office requires managing a budget, and I'll be able to do that. It requires managing people with the various offices up and down the Keys. I have a very good approach for management and teamwork and ability to rally the troops. And my government background, I think, will serve me well, that I know that the government is a difficult process, but one that's slow and methodical, and you have to work your way through it to get the results you want. And I know I'll do a good job for the citizens.
Okay, great. And if the citizens want to contact you, Barry, what should they call and what address should they
Right,
email?
pretty simple, Barry Gibson Key West at Gmail. That's really the easiest way. Google me, that information's so easy. If you want to get a hold of somebody, you just Google them.
Right.
And it really makes it easy, so.
The joy of
yes,
Google, right?
Indeed, yes, thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Barry, for
Thank you,
talking
Jenna,
with me
yes.
this morning. All right, everybody, we have to take a quick break, but I'll be back with local author Mike Dennis. Don't go away.